Hello Year 11. In this weekly review we're going to look at representing algorithms in flowcharts. I'm going to go through the flowchart symbols and look at some of the answers to the homework questions. So what you're expected at exam level, you need to be able to read flowcharts that have been algorithms that have been represented as flowcharts, as well as write simple flowcharts for different algorithms. So we looked at question number 1 in the lesson. I'm going to jump into question number 2, which is set for homework, and they get progressively more difficult. But if you can remember, all algorithms or flowcharts are going to start with our start symbol. So I'm going to start with start. Then I'm going to look at what this algorithm has to do. Input a value for a radius and then ask them to choose, and then either circumference or area and output. So the first thing that I need to get off the user is for them to input R for radius. And again, this is my input symbol. So I'm going to try and draw a parallelogram for input. And then next it says, well, what happens? They're going to be given a choice. So after this, there's going to be a choice. And this Boolean choice was area or circumference. So if they choose this pathway, I'm going to say for A for area, there's going to be some type of process. I've got to calculate the area of a circle. And the area of the circle is pi r squared. Yeah, I can't remember, pi r squared. And if they choose circumference, there's going to be a process. So I'm going to, sorry, up here I should have maybe wrote A equals pi r squared. And this one, C, is going to equal 2 pi r. So they've now calculated that. What's going to happen? Well, if they choose this pathway, they're going to have to output the A, which again is my output symbol, which is the area. And if they choose this pathway, I need to output C. And then these are going to merge somewhere, and my terminator to end. So that is the idea of using selection. And I'm only going to do question 3 because we look at iteration, but it's the same process for iteration. So now we're asking the user to, slightly more complex, input how many values, ask them to input these, then output the average. So we're trying to use our decomposition and our abstraction skills here. Think about this. I want to enter 3 numbers. So I've got to keep count of how many numbers. So input number 1, that's 10. Input number 2, that's 12. That's 22. Input number 3, that's 8. That's 30. That's 3 numbers. 30 divided by 3 equals 10. I put the average. There's a lot going on there algorithmically. That's why we use decomposition. So bear with me. I'm probably going to have to more than likely make mistakes here. And that's all part of the drafting process. So again, I'll go for question 3. I've got to start my algorithm. And then after it starts, I said input how many values. I'm going to call that n. So input n, that was my parallelogram for input. Now once I input the number, I've got to be able to keep count of that. So I'm going to declare a variable, which is a process. My count is going to be 0. And also I've got to, that's, count how many numbers I've put in. And I'm going to declare another variable called sum is going to be 0. So I know that they want to enter in 3 or 33 or 333 numbers. I know at the moment of starting counting at 0 and the sum is 0. So what happens after that? There is a looping statement. Is the count less than the number they want to input? So I'm going to put count less than n. And that's a decision. And that branches to yes, or that can branch to no. Well, if it branches to yes, what do I want them to do? I want them to input a number. Just 1 second. Right, the video bomb's over. So where was I? Count is less than the number. They're going to count is less than n. They're going to give me a number, their first number. And I am going to have a process of incrementing the count. Count is going to be incremented by 1. And then I've got to input this number here into the sum. So I've got a process sum is going to be incremented plus or equal by the num they give me. So far what have we got? Give me the number that you want to input. They want to enter 3 numbers. So we'll say up here, they're entering 3 numbers. Count equals 0, sum equals 0. First thing, enter your first number, and they're going to put in number 4. Count is incremented by 1, so count will equal 1. Sum is incremented by the number, so sum evaluates to 4. What happens? We've got to go back and see if count is less than number. So 1 is less than 3, and you get the idea. They input a number, increment the count, increment the sum, go back. Count is now at 2. Is count less than number? Yes, it is, and they go through it again. And this will iterate it until count equals 3, and then it will evaluate to no. And what do we have to do? We have to get the average. So if this evaluates to no, sorry, change the pen color, I'm going to have to output, I think it was the average value, which would be the sum divided by the number they put in, and then amending the process. A lot more complex, but it's the idea of using iteration. So we'll go through it once more. This idea that we're going to start the algorithm and give them a number. They put in the number 3. We start this at 0, and the sum begins at 0, and then you ask them to input the number. Each time they input a number, we're incrementing the count, and we're going to compare it in here. When the count equals the number that they said, oh, I wanted to put in 3 numbers, we go to our no branch and we output the average. Folks, a lot there. I'm not going to look at question 4 because it'll take too long for me to do on screen, but it's the same skill set. I will look at very quickly just some common mistakes in the homework. Pick on Dylan, first one that I see. Sorry. And has Dylan made these mistakes? Maybe Dylan, yes, he has. Just to be aware that if it's multiple branches, we can branch off like that. If you look at your notes, multiple branches we represent like this. 2, you've seen A and B, but if there's multiple branches, we branch at the bottom. And then just be careful here. Now, Dylan's hasn't made that mistake. Lots of people forgot that if it ends with an A, it begins with an A in the connector, and to put in the formula within the process. So look over your answers in your homework. We will continue with this next week. And again, if you've any questions, make sure you post to the team. Good luck, folks, and we'll chat again Monday.